Good evening. Welcome, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. My name is Beth Bruce. I'm the director here at the Valley Arts Center, and we welcome you to tonight's program. We are honored that you're here for our second edition of Ekphrastacy, a traveling show with Heights Arts, and we are so excited for our partnership with Heights Arts. Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for being here and doing this with us. We'd also like to thank our program sponsors that made tonight possible, Cuyahoga Arts and Culture and the Ohio Arts Council. And we are grateful to our exhibition sponsors, Premier Bank, Hamlet at Chagrin Falls, Hummel Construction, and Justified Design. So thank you all for coming. I'm so excited for this program. We put the curtains up tonight because we do have some classes in the building. We didn't want the distraction of people walking by. But we're so excited to have this program. So I'm going to turn it over to Julie, our assistant director and gallery manager.
Hello, everybody. I just want to go ahead and say thank you again so much for coming out tonight. I truly appreciate it. This is our second edition of Ekphrastacy. So just to give you an overview of what's going to be happening tonight, essentially our artists are going to get up and say a few things about their artwork, how it's made, or their interpretation, and then we're going to have our amazing poets that we have tonight come up and perform something based off of the artwork. So it's very exciting. You'll see a couple of our artworks have moved around the gallery, but some we will have to do a little bit of neck stretches and move around and look at those. So when those come up, we'll be able to point those out for you. So our first poet tonight is McNiece. And Ray is the current Cleveland Heights Poet Laureate. I will not be giving an introduction to every poet tonight. We have those in our program, and they wrote them themselves, which means it's going to be better than anything that I can say, but they're fabulous, and we're so excited to have you all here. Thank you so much. So the first object that we're going to be talking about tonight is crow number 1 from Donna Barger. So that's this piece right here. Donna is unable to be in attendance tonight, but she wanted to pass along how honored she is that her artwork was chosen. She also is our first ever winner of the Darling Jackson Watercolor Award, which is a bittersweet and wonderful thing here for a watercolor teacher that we had for 40 years who passed away this year. So we really appreciate Donna submitting this work, and I'm so excited to hear Ray's poem.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you. I'm rifling through my manila folder in search of the crow. But I have him right here. What the? Crow, yeah. No, crow's kind of my spirit out. Oh, you missed the part where I juggled the hamsters. That was really something. This, of course, I walked in to make my selections for the Ekphrastacy event, and the first thing I saw was this. And it just like, ah! Right? So I said, I gotta say something about that, because crows are a big part of my my heritage. It's a sacred animal to the Celts. And so I'm gonna do a few haikus, and then I'm gonna take you back to Catholic school for just a second. You won't be punished. There won't be any rulers whacked across your knuckles or anything like that. So I wrote some haikus for our crow here. After last call, hanging on winter air, crow's breath. Atop dead oak, one crow squawks at the other, beak closed on crust. No crow seen all fall, till settling on black branch, first snowflake falls. One crow lifts from thick hemlock branch, now bare of snow. Crow poking around snow-furrowed cornfield finds one golden kernel. Thank you, Mary. Mary's like my cheering section over here. I'll hook you up later, Mary. And as I said, I want to briefly take you back to Catholic school, to Sister Mauritania. This is called Crow Dawn Caw, after Crow number 1 by Donna Barger. Hearing this morning not robin redbreast, harbinger of spring, as Sister Mauritania chirped, in her morning attire, pointing to picture book cracked open by bony fingers, but lone caw, caw, black as bare branches arching through aching gray sky over Cuyahoga, just outside dirty window pane in this between season, caw, between rushes of traffic, echoing down, caw, echoing down to Earth's skeleton empty now. All right, thank you. Let's hear it for Crows and for the prize winner. Julie, do you want me to keep going, or do we have another? Do we have someone?
Do you have another crow?
I can do an interpretive dance. I guess not.
In that case, I feel the need to intervene. So our next object that we're going to be talking about is Orboat number 1 by Alan Ambusk, who is here with us tonight. That is this object right here. You want to go ahead and speak a little?
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Actually, obviously inspired by Cleveland and about, it's about the commerce and the industry and the infrastructure that's here, but the painting itself is really framed by the old railroad bridge. And not only does it frame the Cuyahoga River, it frames the ore boat, which is making its way up to the steel mill. And in the background is downtown with the United States Court building and of course Terminal Tower. So that's my 2 cents worth on Cleveland, but it's a wonderful, wonderful view and place. Great.
Thank you.
You're up.
Yes. Wow. And I immediately gravitated towards this as well because I'm a Cleveland native. I am the child of factory workers, the grandson and my grandparents all worked in factories. So I am the first male to graduate college in the history of either side of my families. So I'm really, working class guy. So, it just so happened that I was down there, I saw this, and I went down to Collision Bend because I'm doing we're doing a whole project called Poem for Cleveland, which is pairing Cleveland elders and young poets to write poems about Cleveland, to make this complete portrait. I got a grant from the American Academy of Poetry to do so. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Rachel. Rachel, I couldn't have written the grant without Rachel's help. We're poets. We don't write grants. We just walk around and get inspired. So, thank you, Alan, for this great picture because that is really an iconic scene, Cleveland scene. Just around the bend from where that happened was, of course, Rockefeller's kerosene plant back in the day. And it's just by a fluke of luck, I suppose, that Rockefeller was dumping gasoline into the river. And somebody said, hey, I think we can use that to power engines. And sure enough, here we are, years later. Ore freighter pulled through Collision Bend after Ore Boat number 1 by Alan Ambusk. Just as November snow squall begins to swirl over Cuyahoga from low-ceiling lake effect sky, comes a tug pulling an ore freighter around Collision Bend, the original Dead Man's Curve, guiding it under skeletal steel Carter lift bridge, forged from spines of long-gone millmen, raised now to let this last load of Mojave Range pellets through. Lorenzo Carter, drunk in his log cabin down the road, could never have imagined its hydraulics, nor the massive hull sliding by as winter palls on down, on the undersides of great ticked gull wings circling, scouring propeller-churned surface for shiners, the river ready to freeze over and be left alone. Past the battleship gray girders of the RTA bridge, past the giant concrete grain silos that have taken over the flat skyline from what bare sycamores are left, from these last dull flames of staghorn sumac stalks, from the brittle rusty ragweeds, the freighter turns its length south towards Cleveland Cliffs, where once birch bark canoes paddled down only to portage over to the Black River, to the Hocking, to the Ohio, to the Mississippi, when rivers were the only roads. Long before Rockefeller, at his factory just past the bend, discovered byproduct of kerosene he was dumping into the flow, could be used to combust engines, and his wheels began turning into wheels of global Autogeddon. As his not-so-invisible hand of the marketplace counted potential petrodollars. The freighter wallows on, almost out of sight, pregnant with that last load of ore brought in before the Lake Erie lockdown. One last load melted into steel, which shall surely rise again, the prophets declare, from this once burning river valley as the world turns and burns down all around. Little apocalyptic Christmas message for you all. No, we're getting there. We're going to get electric cars. Everything's going to be flying cars, flying electric cars. I predicted.
Thank you so much. So our next object we're going to talk about, we're going to be doing a little bit of that neck yoke I was talking about. It's going to be the object right behind you, Michael. Actually, it is this painting to the left. Yes, right there. That painting with the yellow background. So that is Mad About Monk by George Kokar. He's unable to attend tonight, but he did send a note. He said, I am honored to have Ray write a poem about the work. I've been friends with Ray for many years. He said, Mad About Monk 2 was painted at the beginning of the pandemic. Monk painted about anxiety and fear and other psychological concerns in his era. What better to paint about as we navigated the early days of COVID, as we tried to figure out how to survive in COVID.
Thank you, Julie. Yeah, everyone take a gander at that bit of colorful angst. George Kokar is one of the great Cleveland artists, and when I saw his painting in here, the first thing is, I gotta write about that. He is a friend of mine as well, but I love his, I just love his colors, for one thing. His colors always, as soon as you walk in, they just pull you right in. But I love his playfulness, and this is like the epitome of George Kokar's sense of humor right here. So this is called The Cosmic Joke, after George Kokar's Mad About Monk. I started a joke that started the whole world screaming! Simply by wearing Edward's skirk, or mask thereof, 24/7, playing my part in the mass marketing of existential despair. As I slide into my living room easy chair, wearing my Scree der Natur t-shirt bought at the Met Gala, lit up by my full-figured scream of angst floor lamp. Even my cat wears a feline-eyed scream mask, mincing around my shoes, polished into twin screams. The curtains behind me ripple with the same red burnt orange infinite entropy that appalled Monk into his frozen pose. Along the bone-chilling cold fjord outside Oslo, Look outside my window. The dark fir trees seem to scream under a sky rounding into a mouth. A scream within a scream within a... You get the picture. As I sit here aware, down to the absolute zero of my marrow, how time puts the squeeze on every body, eventually, that time is a line, except when it circles into the shape of empty agony that can't stave off inevitable futility. From the first cry out of the womb into the gaping maw of the tomb, this self-portrait of dread that swallows one's whole face, that skirk that echoes the pang of the Big Bang from that primordial soup of quark gluon plasma that holds everything together. It does, it holds everything together. Quarks. Paint, canvas, easy chair, tree, sky, cat, mask, even the screen beneath the mask, all of which will go back into the black hole from whence comes this cosmic we're all gonna die. But we're here now, so let's live it up.
All right, so our next poem is going to be inspired by Love Letter to a Ghost by Keegan Adams, which is going to be this work that features a jacket to my left. Keegan Adams, the artist, was unable to attend, but wrote a note. They said, this print was done as a memorial or a reliquary to a family friend, Jim Costa. Jim passed away from complications from AIDS in 1995, and I've always been aware of his loss and surrounded by his memory. The denim jacket was his, and I wore it for many years as well. The jacket slowly dissipating was an image I've been working with since the early days of the pandemic. I hope he knows we still love him.
We do love him. I love him. I love him for creating that work, because what it did for me is it took me down to a similar jacket story, which I shall now tell, of my my girlfriend Lucelena, who was a folk singer from Colombia, and we traveled all over Europe together. And she had a famous denim jacket, which was a source of sometimes dispute between the two of us, because she left it behind in this cafe, and she said, I gotta go get the jacket. I said, it's just a jacket. She goes, I'm going to get the jacket. But the jacket meant a lot more than that, because she left the jacket, but when we split up, she left the jacket behind, which I thought was kind of coincidental, or ironically coincidental, perhaps. The jacket you left behind. After Keegan Adams' Love Letter to a Ghost. This is the same denim jacket you wore when we backpacked from Paris to Barcelona and back. The same jacket you forgot in a cafe smelling of cigarettes, dark roast, and anise cookies that you hitchhiked back to find while I waited on the side of the road muttering, let it go, it's only a thing. The same jacket I draped over your naked shoulders after we skinny dipped the Bay of Biscay. This is the jacket of regret pulled from the dark waters of forgetting where our child is sunken. The same jacket you left behind, framed delicately and hanging now in the back of our closet, bodiless. The blues had been washed away to a fainter shade of sad, but still somehow holds your scent after all these years. And perhaps this is, after all, what a ghost is. A waft of essence. I could still find you in the dark of this bedroom. It is the only way to find you now.
Damn.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ray. Our next poet up is going to be Siaara Freeman. We're very, very excited to have you here. We also have first up Kim Barnes. This artwork is titled Destined to be Queen. It is in the back corner, our beautiful mixed media piece in that gold frame. And if Kim wants to come up, we can go ahead and hear a couple of words from the artist herself.
Hi, good evening. This is a piece that I did. It's of my niece. My goal really is to highlight and show people of color in noble and beautiful ways. So I really try to bring you in by the eyes, but then bring the fabric to really show the luxuriousness and to show the multiculturalism and how we're all connected. So I do the layer of the fabrics to really tell a story. So it's really to bring you in, to show you how beautiful color can be, and that it's not all about maybe what you see on TV, but how people really are across the world. So.
Well, it is a really, really beautiful piece, Kim, and I was very, very inspired by it. Hello, good evening, everyone. How are you? I talk to folks. Y'all don't have to talk back to me. I talk to folks. I want to say before I start, thank you for Heights Arts for having me. I want to say what an honor it is to read with Ray and Dr. Mary Weems and Christine Howey. These are legends in the literary arts scene in Cleveland. This is legendary folks. And I take it as no small honor to be a part of this. So thank you for coming out. I wrote this poem and I saw this beautiful, beautiful, hopeful, positive picture. And my mother calls me the Black Girl Wednesday Addams. So sometimes I see beautiful, beautiful things, and I find a way to make it a little dark. And so this is inspired by Destined to be Queen by Kim Barnes. And I titled it, An Obituary Cut with Diamonds. If these streets are anything, we have turned them into kingdoms. The hood has made monarchies and mockery of America's democracy like any member of any royal court. I have seen far too much of what and who it takes to be crowned. If the crownings have taught me anything, it is that you are not the only one imagining your death. I have looked too long into hearts and have still come up empty. The wars decadent in their blood, the jewels washed in gossip, execution-style endings, weddings that cost an education in today's economy, conquerings, feast, excess in armory, misplaced trust, feast, soldiers whose name blur with their blood, feast, the nobles wrapped in gold, then imprisoned. My father was a king. And he was murdered the way kings often are, from one betrayal or another. I spurn my grand inheritance and exchange a secret. I have never seen a throne that could not double as a closed casket.
Intertwined, which is this photograph here, and we have the artist Bill Luther here with us.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a hard act to follow. I want to thank the Valley Arts Center for making this possible, and I really want to thank you for selecting my photograph. Inspired you, I guess, to write a poem, and I think that's fabulous, and I'm so honored. I love to take photographs, particularly of nature and man-made objects together. There are exceptions to this, but nature basically hates straight lines. Mostly everything is curved. And things are a little bit laid back in nature and a little bit flexible. And When you get to man-made, it changes. Linear is very important. Some things are curved, but there's a lot of linear. And it's kind of rigid, and there's always a stated purpose for it. So I find the contrast between these two to be fascinating and energizing, and I absolutely love it. So, intertwine, where is it? Intertwine is a classic example of what I'm talking about, nature and man-made. But there are three kind of interesting twists in this photograph. The first one is that in spite of the fact that the tree and the branches have these wonderful curved lines in them, the only circle in the picture is the Ferris wheel. But if you look closely, the Ferris wheel is made up entirely of straight lines. Yeah. So there are no circles or curves in the man-made part of this picture. The second one is that the tree and the Ferris wheel are kind of occupying the same space. And it looks like they're cooperating and maybe competing a little bit. But we all know if there's a competition, we all know who's going to win. Because the Ferris wheel's coming down someday, and the tree's going to stay. And if the tree came down with a Ferris wheel, another tree would take its place. So the third is that if I look at this picture for a long time, the Ferris wheel changes from facing left and facing right. It switches between the two. And so you have a static image becoming dynamic, which is kind of unusual. So I wanted to capture what was both fun and meaningful to me. And I love this picture because I love the tree and the Ferris wheel together. And to me, the picture is about the dynamic between man-made and nature, but I absolutely love it if somebody else sees it differently and gets a different message. So thank you very much.
I really love this image, William. So much of my work is dark and whimsical. Even though it's dark, it's a lot of magic, it's a lot of mythology and folklore that tends to appear in my work. And when I came in and I was looking around at the art, I was immediately attracted to, I was also thinking nature versus the machine and who is gonna win and who is gonna last. And I was also thinking about childhood and how we grow, and how no matter how this thing turns, there are some things that are constant. So I would have loved to, William, I also am inspired to write more poems just based off of the conversation that you just gave. Like, I want to go write a whole series. That was beautiful. My coming of age story got snagged in a nightmare. Sorry about that. I am 32. My students think I am 23. Other educators mistake me for one of my students. I'm not sure who should apologize, so we are all sorry about that. I told a woman I was gonna marry her on a Ferris wheel once. I did not marry her. Neither of us are sorry about that. It took me 15 years after my father was murdered to go to therapy. My life is so sorry about that. I promised my inner child faster, happier endings. That same little girl promised me grace. We are currently at a stalemate. I am more open to budging. I am going to reach out to her. I am going to rehearse dream speak until I am true in the face. I am learning silence can be an apology for so much noise. I am learning noise can be an apology for so much silence. I am writing more poems where the world does not end when people do. I am writing more poems where people get forgiven.
out is A Witch's Garden by Christina Blash. If she could come up. That's you. Okay. And come on up. That is this drawing right here.
Okay, so I am definitely an art teacher, and I have to tell my students that I need to read from a script because I can't wing it. So I'm going to read this to you real quick. I think I'm in love with you. Okay. In my piece, The Witch's Garden, you will find chamomile, mugwort, belladonna, henbane, wolfsbane, lavender, pumpkins, sage, mullein, and apples. Each plant is medicinal, nourishes, or contains magical properties. Okay. If you know anything about me or want to learn anything about me, I believe that art is magic. Okay, it is witchcraft. In one way or another, the witch's garden is meant to heal, either physically or through casting one's intentions to the universe. I have a tendency to focus on several projects at once and create a lot of one-off work. So I decided to create a long-term piece about a passion of mine, which is gardening. This is an activity that I submerge myself in during the calmer days of summer. Because I am an art teacher and I feel like I go crazy during the year. While working on this piece, I decided to use a process that would force me to slow down. That process was pen and ink stippling. Okay, so if any of you are familiar, you know the pain. Most find this form of drawing tedious, but I find it meditative. During the constant chaos as an educator, feeling it right now, this work provided me with healing moments of catharsis and dreams of summer. Not to sound super corny, but yes. Yes. Thank you. This is an honor.
Can y'all clap for Christina one more time? I love Christina. Me and Christina had the opportunity to connect for a second before this whole thing started, and we absolutely fell in love with each other, so wait for the engagement announcements. I was also drawn to this photo for many reasons. One, my book just came out. Actually, Cleveland Magazine just released an article on my book today. It's called Urbanchi. And Urbanchi is a combination of the words urban and banshee. Urban, meaning inner city, hood, and banshee being of Irish folklore, the fairy that warns those of death. And why don't you get me? You see where I'm at with it. You get me. And so my mother would be like, please smile while you're doing this dark shit, at least. I try to make sure that when I am writing, I'm trying to be conscious of looking towards joy more often. And I'm trying to find myself drawn to the things that make me smile. I typically, as an artist, we get caught up in the things that make us think, that make us, want to sit and be in our deep, darkest feelings. And I think that there is another lane for that I hadn't discovered. And I'm just now getting into that world of discovery of writing joy. And when I saw this, the first thing I thought was this would make a badass tattoo. This would be an awesome tattoo. Anytime. The homie. And again, so much of where I find joy, I'm also an educator. It's with my students. And I feel like y'all will know the cadence of this particular poem. So if anyone wants to join in, by all means, join in. Inspired by a witch's garden. The witch's garden. There was a witch. There was a witch. In the middle of the garden, the most curious garden that you ever did see, And the covens gather from all around, and the covens gather from all around. And in this witch, there was a spell. The fiercest spell that you ever did see. Yeah, and the spell and the witch in the garden and the coven gather all around, and the coven gather all around. And with this spell, come on y'all, and with this spell, yeah, there was a dream. The sweetest dream that you ever did see. And the dream with the spell, and the spell and the witch in the garden, and the covens gather all around, and the covens gather all around. And from this dream, there was a nest. The oddest nest that you ever did see. And the nest from the dream, and the dream with the spell, and the spell and the witch in the garden, and the covens gather all around, and the covens gather all around. And in this nest, there was a voice, the prettiest voice that you ever did see. And the voice in the nest from the dream, and the dream with the spell, and the spell and the witch in the garden, the covens gather around, all around, and the covens gather all around. And in this voice, there was some hope, the purest hope that you ever did see. And the hope in the voice, and the voice in the nest from the spell, and the dream with the spell, and the spell and the witch in the garden, and the covens gather all around, and the covens gather all around. Y'all got it. That's what I'm talking about.
Amazing. So the next object we're going to be talking about tonight is Cheers from Emma Getzulis. Did she happen to come? Yes, awesome. So our artist, Emma, is here to tell us a little bit about her object, which is right here, this photograph.
Hi, thank you for choosing my piece, and thank you for having me. I created this piece in March of 2020, and it's more of just me learning how to be comfortable alone and not with other people, which is something that a lot of us struggled with. So over time, I became comfortable with being alone, and now I'm able to just be alone and be okay with it. So that's about it. I love that. I love that so much, Emma. My therapist was like we're working on my codependency right now, major, and I'm such a people pleaser, and it is one of those things to hear other people be vulnerable about that out loud, of having to understand even as an adult what it means to be alone and find peace and solace in that. I thank you for that type of solidarity. I appreciate that. This poem, I was not alone. I have not completed that version of therapy, so this poem is about being with others and needing others, but I appreciate the sentiment. I love that these two pieces of art are close by. They both felt so magical to me. To see these floating little teacups in the air with the water spilling, it just felt super magical, and I love that. So here's a toast. If you have something to drink, put it up in the air, Yeah. I love that imaginary toast. If you got an imaginary hand, imaginary toast. All right. May you only drink with good ghost. I toast you hope with a fresh heart every year. I think it's good for you. May you find love no matter where you lose it. May you hold yourself to the light and become dizzy with your own sparkle. May you never shatter without someone to help you clean up the mess. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just absolutely incredible. I'm going to go ahead and welcome our next poet up. It's going to be Christine Howey. It's because you're nice and close to that speaker right there. If you want to go it's over here. That's what it is. Now that everybody's super awake, our next object we're going to be talking about is Reflection by Julie Martin. If Julie wants to come on up, there you are, and say a little bit about the piece. Chris, grab that.
This is my piece, Reflection. I did it in a fragmented style that I came up with, that I want people to spend time with and look at it and maybe think, what's she doing? Or you take it and you try to move the pieces and see if they line up. But she's kind of feeling fragmented, I think, in her emotion, the way she's looking. I think it was a hot day. She looks wrinkled and sweaty. She sat by the pond to cool off. And I don't know what went on that day, but maybe she's just thinking about it. She's not looking at anybody. She's just looking off into space. But the technique kind of helps with that mood, I think. So that's
Thank you. I'm also so thrilled to be reading with these amazing poets. I don't know if you realize how special this is.
Yes. Yes.
Because if you go to poetry readings, no offense, but you got these poems like, I saw the flower, the sun was reflecting off the leaf. Just shut up. You know, and each of these poets has such a distinctive voice on the page and speaking their words. And combining it with the art, this is like a bountiful moment.
Yes.
And I hope you all appreciate it. I know. This particular piece just stopped me. I just was like, whoa, I gotta do something there. And I was really taken with the refractions and the lines and so forth. And the weird thing was, my mind linked to another artist. And so this is what I wrote. I'm trying to get used to these reader glasses. Because I never wore glasses before in my life. And I just had surgery on what's it called? The cataract. And so, and I've got to take them on, put them off, and I take them on, and now it's blurry, and okay, I'm working on it. I'm not going to stand in front of that beautiful piece of art. Reflecting on my recent escape from an Edward Hopper painting. I recall edges, sharp angles, corners, harsh sunlight. I was alone on a bed or at a desk looking out at a boxy industrial plant, wondering how I got there. More depressed than usual, which is saying something. Longing for something soft, a flower, a pond, a place to sit. But nothing ever changed until, while he was out, I escaped and ran, and somehow arrived at the very place I had imagined. But still, here among the flowers and water, the sharp edges remain. Part of me now. Corners, the slash of shadows, invisible, enduring.
Absolutely amazing. So our next object tonight is going to be an object called Flesh Vinyl by Violet Mainborg. They are here, I believe so. So this is a sculpture. Unfortunately, I can't, bring it up for everybody to see, but please, whenever we're done, come on up here. It's an incredible piece of mixed media made out of silicone of the artist's face, a record player, and real human hair. When the artist came in to drop off their artwork, I was like, oh my God, I know you, you're so familiar. It's because I saw the image of the piece first. It is the artist's face, which is just absolutely incredible. So the next poem is going to be about Flesh Vinyl.
I collect records. So when I saw this in the phonograph, and I was just drawn to it, and you've got to come up and see this. The expression on the face is just amazing, and I just had to write about this. So I asked them if we could tilt it up, but they said the silicone would slide and change the face or something. So I guess we're not going to do that.
You break it, you buy it.
This is titled 33. There was a time when the world rotated at 33 revolutions per minute, a mellow pace compared to the quickening frenzy of 78 or the adolescent restlessness of 45. That was the time when records were large, cover photos enormous, and on the back, ample acreage for copious notes on the artist, the supporting musicians, the genre. But now, there are 78 revolutions per second, pinged on our cell phones and vibrating to the catcalls of woke and MAGA, all dissolving into atonal, aggressive enemy. Pardon me while I slide into my own concentric groove, where 33 brings me Sinatra and Simone, Ella and Della, Oaks and Near, and a couple moments of blessed fucking harmony.
Absolutely fabulous. Our next object we're going to be talking about tonight is Tale of the White Raven by Michael W. High. So that is this incredible ceramic sculpture that we have up here as well. I hope you guys can see it. If not, please come up after this poetry reading and take a look.
I'm Michael. I'm a man of few words, so this will be quick. My work centers mostly on imagery that portrays human emotions through other things, usually animals. Specifically either rabbits, which people may have seen in mine, or birds, mostly blackbirds. But in this case, it's an albino version of a blackbird. I guess that's me. And they're harbingers. So they bring to the sculptures the message that might be uncomfortable for a human to present. And some of them are dark, but I don't necessarily want my viewers to accept my version of something, because a lot of with my work is people see what comes from their life experience in it, and that's kind of how I want to keep it. I create it with an intent. They all have a story, or they all represent an emotion or something that's drawn from my experience, but I want you to put your experience in it. And that even includes how they're structured, because as you see, it seems representational, but at the same time, if you come to it and start to break it apart in how it's created, it's actually scraps. I create scraps, I borrow scraps, and I put them together in a form that reads something, but not necessarily is something. And then of course, it's kind of obvious, this part, but there's a lot of dream sequencing that goes into things. So they have a surreal look, even though you're like, hey, that's a person, hey, that's a bird, those are antlers. But overall, even the construction and the everything, I want it to come together and then talk to you. And whatever it says is all right. Even if it says, God, that's ugly. But there I am. Thank you.
Well, that's what I did. I walked up and I saw it and I said, hey, that's a bird. It was an antler. And it was just, I was drawn to the movement of it and the solidity of it at the same time. It was just a nice contrast there. And you can't really see I don't think from back, the White Raven, but when you come up maybe later and look at it, the White Raven is very clear when you stand next to it. So says the White Raven, all the winters that precede death are mirrors, not repetitions. So says the White Raven, whose name is White Raven and nothing else. In the multiverse, all life is one, a branch, a blueberry, a bird, a human. So says the White Raven, for whom thought is resonance and redemption. Stretch out your arms, emerge from the mud, then transform, or else. So says the White Raven, who has mastered the art of concision. We only perch so that we can prepare to fly. To fly. To fly. So says the White Raven, airborne, about to reveal heaven in a treetop. Oh.
Fabulous. Okay, so the next object we're going to be talking about tonight should be a little easier to see even from the back. That's going to be Ken Hetzel's Nest or Sacrifice. If Ken would like to come on up and say a few words about his sculpture.
My piece, Nest or Sacrifice, began approximately 20 to 25 years ago. That's when the splinters I found on a tree that was hit by lightning, and they sat in my garage up to this point. The nest appeared in a birdhouse that used to be a sculpture, and I made the birdhouse in such a way that every year my plan was that I could take the roof off, take the birdhouse out, and then take photographs of them and have somewhat of history of the birdhouse itself. I was surprised when I lifted the roof off to find it all sticks and in a square, exactly what the interior of the birdhouse represents. I was told that it might be a house wren that made it, since it's all sticks. So that's what I'm going for. And I was able to take it out and simply decided to bind it with a very fine wire and hope that it never comes apart. And the rest of it, originally the title was going to be Nest, but as I came closer to the final destination of the piece, I also saw this as an altar. And it more or less goes into play for this year because the birdhouse was again in place. It appeared that the same type of bird came back to build a nest, and then it was hit with the storm, toppled. I put it back up, and at the end of the year, or during the summer, I noticed that the 2 eggs that had been in the birdhouse at some point were now at the base of the sculpture, broken. And so I started thinking about, well, the eggs not making it into flight, but ending up being destroyed for whatever reason. I don't know if it was another bird or anything else like that. And the aspect of the eggs taking flight, not realizing what happens to the eggs that in flight, simply because the parents never see their offspring again. So.
And sometimes a piece of art takes you in a wildly different place than you expected it to. And that was true with this one. So the title may seem disconnected, but hang on through the end. So. Saving Democracy, 2022. Our home, sealed up tight and cozy, is more vulnerable than it seems. Even the firmest foundation, thick planks and slabs, Footers backfilled, piers reinforced, all eventually bloom upwards into air and filigree. Useless symmetry. Arches and cornices, doors and windows that can be locked, but not really. We convince ourselves that we are comfortable in our nest, in the open spaces amidst beams and river rocks. But wood burns and splinters, stones can be dislodged and slung. Inside our ragged fracture of brambles, we are children, covering our eyes and imagining they can't see us. And the graceful curve of branches overhead and the small pebbles we line up for protection may not help the next time when they come through the windows for us.
Thank you so much, Christine. The next poet I'm going to be bringing up is Dr. Mary E. Weems. And the first object that she will be performing about is Suffer and Gather, the Bread Altar by Madeline Davis. If she wants to come up here and say just a few words about her object, which is this incredible walnut table that's in front of us here.
Hi, I'm Madeline. I created Suffer and Gather, the Bread Altar. I made it in the winter of 2021 as a part of my thesis show at the Cleveland Institute of Art. It was really inspired by, I grew up in a Christian household, and I think there was something so beautiful about communion that really stuck with me even after I kind of stepped away from the church, that we go through life suffering and gathering as individuals, and then coming together based off that suffering to comfort and love each other is so beautiful. And the idea of communion and bread, and thinking about the symbol of the body of Christ being overused with bread, I wanted to give a new connotation to bread of just being purely about us and our suffering, but then coming together through that beauty and being able to comfort one another and constantly be, given to and not just constantly giving. So.
I think that I shall never see a poem as lovely as a tree. A poem is lovely. Different families of leaves fall, each year a ring in its coffin. On the last day, the cutter takes time to say thanks for decades of oxygen and colors and shade and shelter. Severed, the tree drops like a shadow, its heart removed and sold to an artist who shapes it into a round, brown, intricately carved table, kind that belongs in a home for gathering and guffawing, for love and being thankful.
The next piece of work that we'll be talking about tonight is Under Siege by P.J. Lytle. If they would like to come up and say a few words about their object. It is this painting that is right behind me.
Can you hear my knees shaking? Okay. I think it's kind of obvious that what this painting is about and what inspired me, which was the atrocity of the war in Ukraine. I'm sorry, it's hard for me to even talk about this, and if you haven't noticed it's still horrible and going on, you're not paying attention. But anyway, it's just my gut response. It's a lot about how I felt and how I thought they might feel, and it's dark and confusing. But I really, it's different than I normally work. I'm not always dark, but a lot of collage, a lot of materials. I like the technical narrative, even when I just oil paint. In other words, the surface. So like, for instance, there's a hawk in her left eye. That's a collage piece. So, technical narrative, and just a gut response to, you know, how I was feeling about what was going on, still going on. And I want to thank the Valley Arts Center. All of you artists have just been really, poets, artists. This is great. I've never been here before. I was honored to get in this show, so thank you so much.
I saw something different. Under siege. Young, she hates everything but herself. Heart worn over heart. Even her skin has changed. Dark where it should be light. Scars where it should be smooth. All of her openings guarded. She joins the battle. Slowly, her raging body becomes a mural for laying on of healing hands.
Our next art group tonight is John Lewis, Good Trouble number 2 from Bill Fleming. If you'd like to come on up and speak a little bit about your work, it is this print right back.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for this honor. I mean, this is quite a surprise. So I didn't know much about John Lewis until he passed away a couple of years ago. And hearing all the tributes and everything about him got me curious and interested in learning more about him. So I read a book about him by John Meacham, and I was just really impressed with his life and the man, and really amazed at his courage that he had during the, can you tell me where this? But during the civil rights movement of the 1960s, it's just incredible if you read about what he went through. And then of course I was taken with his philosophy of, you know, do good trouble, do, no, I forget the word, necessary trouble. And so anyway, so that's what inspired me to do the painting. It's pretty straightforward, it's a portrait. I just briefly about my process. I do several paintings, acrylic paintings on paper, and I do a relief print, either woodcut or linoleum. In this case, this was a linoleum print. So I hand print the relief print on top of my paintings, which is a scary process, and I hope to get at least one good one out of it. And so there it is. Thank you.
Good trouble. I was raised to stay out of trouble. Mama didn't play. The civil rights movement explained as grown folks' business in our house. Current news conversations after dinner between Mama, Grandpa, and Granny about race, hatred, and violence always started with our bedtime. Dr. King's sudden assassination in 1968, mourned by millions as Mr. Lewis grieved from the front lines. Being beat down by police, arrested, water hosed, and attacked by dogs hadn't prepared him for this deep, everlasting hurt, kind some men have after losing their fathers. As I take a long look at the painting of his face, I remember where I was that day. Hear him standing on the Edmund Pettus Bridge for the last time, reminding all of us to get and stay in good trouble.
All right, suddenly we are at the end. We have one last poem tonight, and it is going to be about the object taken for a ride by Jessica Waskak, and that is going to be this artwork right here. If you'd like to come up and say a little bit about your work.
Hi. This piece here, I went back and forth with the title. I came up with, taken on a ride. It was originally going to be going for a ride, but I went back and forth because of the implications. I've always been one to go with, think a lot about duplicity in my work. And taken on a ride seems to be a little more sinister than going on a ride, because it implies that you don't have control of the circumstance. And so this river here, the Oxbow, was one of many rivers that I drew and then took into the computer and layered with photographs of landscapes that I've taken during the lockdown. And the title of the series is Guidelines, the Language of Rivers. And so you can kind of take what you want to take from the title, Take It on a Ride. And I kind of like the horizontal landscape because it relates to our bodies, that you can kind of lay in that space. I worked with squares a lot in the past, but I got into the horizontals for this series because I like how you can relate to it with your body. So.
He loved to take her for a ride on Sundays after church. Their weekdays preoccupied with the planned anger he'd bring home after work, along with the empty lunch container she prepared the night before. His key in the lock, a fire alarm. Any sound or gesture followed by his backhand in the face, his foot, her tears, followed by his apology, forced make-up sex, recalled during short ride down the same one-way street.
All right, with that, I just want to go ahead and thank you, Dr. Larry Weems. I thank you to Ray McNiece, to Siaara Freeman, to Christine Howey. We just can't say thank you enough. It's been absolutely incredible having you here. I want to thank the artists for opening your hearts and getting up here and And finally, I just want to say thank you to everybody for being in attendance. Please come up, enjoy the art, get to take a look at something that maybe we weren't able to see before. We still have refreshments, and drive safe. Thank you so much for coming.